But let's start with the Melville Millionaires in the Bungie division. Again, it's going to get some getting used to of saying that division title name.
I believe it's a
it's
Dutch
awesome.
word. I believe it's Dutch.
Okay, well, I'll go with that.
Yeah.
I'll go with that. I'm not going to argue. So we'll start with the Melville Millionaires, Nugsy. As we can see, last year they had a really impressive season, ending up 5th in the league, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, they went 31-22, 2-1 with 65 points. A really impressive season overall. A team that was a very good shutdown team. We wondered where a lot of their goals were going to come from last year. I'm going to say that theme is carrying over a little bit into this season, Nugsy.
Yeah.
But what can you tell me about the Melville Millionaires in terms of last season and coming into this year?
Well, the first thing is that they're big.
Yes.
Very, very big. 9 guys over 6'2", 9 guys over 190 pounds. Aggressive, physical. This is a team that has taken some time to be built in Doug Johnson's image, the head coach GM. They are now in Doug Johnson's image. They are aggressive. They can skate as well. They'll play his system or they'll leave, and they will have a terrible time of it. But they are a team that won't be any fun to play against. We did talk about their issues with maybe a few goals here and there. They only scored 172 last year. That was 8th best in the SJHL, but their goals against was 149,
right,
which was 3rd in the league. Only Melfort and Flin Flon gave up fewer. So, I expect a very similar formula, really, when you talk about just the big picture.
Yeah, and I mean, in our preseason chat, myself and Doug Johnson, I got to chat with him 2 years in a row now for the preseason chat. Last year, his big thing was, I'm very excited about our blue line.
Yeah.
This year, his big thing was, I'm very excited about our blue line. And in fairness, I don't see why you wouldn't be. They have 5 solid returning players. And when you look at Boston Harkness, I think he might be one of the better players in the entire league, let alone just as a defenseman. So I think he's got a big role coming up for him, but you look at Wesley Golden, you look at Brody Hicks, you look at some of those other guys around them. I feel like they have a really solid blue line, maybe one of the better returning groups in the league overall.
Sure. Yeah, and obviously you throw in the power play quarterback in Louis Nadeau in there, who, for Melfort and Melville, pardon me, you hope he can stay healthy, but he's kind of going to be protected there. He's not a big guy, but he's the quarterback of the power play, so you don't want to mess because they got these bruising dudes. But obviously you mentioned there Boston Harkness, important guy. Only Brendan Olsen had more points in terms of guys who are back from Melville this year than Boston. So, I expect, I'm sure you're going to agree, some huge things from him. But, hey, again, up and down the lineup, this is a team in Doug Johnson's image. There were some guys maybe last year that were good players that maybe didn't fit his way, and it's now going to be his way more than ever, or the highway. Yeah,
Jay Corgie's checking in, a.k.a. Jeremy Corrigan. Returning person I'm excited about, Nugsy. Absolutely, everybody is. Thank you for chiming in, Jeremy. Appreciate you joining us. A little bit of a fresh look in net. Actually, not a little bit. A completely new, fresh look in net. Cale Svensson comes in. When I talked to Doug Johnson about him, he was very excited about Cale Svensson. But we're looking at an inexperienced goalie group this year. Does that scare you a little bit, or with their team system, maybe it won't be as scary as some other teams?
I've joked with some people that I could play big goalie for Doug Johnson and be okay. Now, obviously, I wouldn't be okay. And, obviously, I don't mean to take anything away from any Melville Millionaires goalies or Nipawin Hawks goalies of the past. There have been some incredible ones.
Yes, there has.
And obviously, last year you think about Nick Jeanette and Ben Lorette, and they both were terrific as well. And so they deserve credit. But yeah, Cale Svensson, he had a whole year of Junior B in BC under his belt last year, did very well for Sicamous. So my expectations are high. He came from a great U18 program, the Calgary Buffs too. So I've got 0 question marks about Melville's goaltending. Obviously, until we see them, we don't know for sure. So maybe that is a question mark. But playing behind this decor you talked about and the way that these forwards should play, should buy in, they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think so too. And one thing that I had my eye on all offseason, of course, was because if you look at last year, Taylor Tabashniak played games for the Melville Millionaires last year. He's coming out of AAA, very impressive season with the Regina Pat Canadians. He made the Regina Pats as an 18-year-old. So that was a guy I was looking out for. The other goalie for the Regina Pats, Kelton Pine, also a former Melville Millionaire. So I was kind of keeping my eye on that just for Melville's sake. But both those goalies are now Regina Pats goalies. So for now, at least, Cale Svensson seems to be the front runner. Is there a guy that's coming in? And we didn't talk much about the forward group necessarily, Nugsy, but I think your answer for this next question might be coming from that forward group. Is there a guy coming in that you might be excited about in terms of the Melville Millionaires, a new guy?
Yeah, well, so one of the paths of what I'm going to call the Olsen twins.
Yeah.
because obviously Brendan Olsen is returning. He's going to be an important player for Melville. Stay. Don't get suspended this year, Brendan. That's all I got to tell you, because last year was too many,
yes.
and I'm sure you know that.
Yeah.
But Wesley Olsen is the real deal. He's a guy that is a pretty well thought of Swift Current Broncos prospect as well. He was the captain of the Swift Legionnaires a year ago, 48 points in 44 games in AAA last year. Big time piece for Melville this year. I expect him to have a big season on this team. And if I can have a 1B, Samuel LaPlante on the back end, had a cup of coffee with the Regina Pats last year too. All-around player, right shot, elite offensive skills on the back end, can do a little bit of everything. But there's a lot of good young players on this Melville team too that you're going to have to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
But those are the two quick ones that I'm going to give you.
Yeah, one, and then for the player that's returning that I think you have to watch out for, I already talked about him. Boston Harkness was my guy, but I'm actually going to switch it up. A big shout out to Boston Harkness. I think he's an early candidate for Defenseman of the Year, honestly, just especially with the type of opportunity he's going to get there. However, I'm going to go with Preston Bearwald on this one. He's returning, obviously. He was the former first overall pick in the SJHL draft. I think when we ask the question about Melville, where are the goals going to come from, I think he has a huge opportunity to maybe be that guy and take a huge jump in his career. And also, like I mentioned, a former first overall pick in the SJHL draft, so it's a great storyline. And the SJHL draft just continues to pump out products. We'll talk about a team later in the Nipawin Hawks who has a ton of SJHL draft picks on their roster this year. So guys like that are very important for this league, and I think Preston Bearwald has a really great opportunity to maybe take a huge step for the Melville Millionaires.